Hello, everyone. In today's episode, we are diving into one of the most important topics of the 2024 US presidential elections: the growing power of minority communities, particularly South Asians, Pakistani Indians, and Muslim Americans. These communities are poised to play a crucial role in shaping the outcome, especially in swing states. So, who will they support? President Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Joining me today is a special guest, Mr. Juan Pablo Segura, a well-known figure in Virginia and a passionate advocate for community engagement. Together, we will explore how these voters could influence the election and what's at stake. So friends, stay tuned. This is going to be a conversation you won't want to miss. So friends, joining me today is Mr. Juan Pablo Segura, a prominent figure in Virginia politics and a dedicated advocate for community engagement. Together, we will explore the importance of these voters and their potential impact on the 2024 elections. Thank you for joining us at Capitol Corner.
Well, first of all, Mansoor, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always an honor to be with you and your audience.
So let's discuss the voting power of South Asian and Muslim communities in Northern Virginia and other key swing states. Mr. Segura, these communities have often been overlooked as a significant voting blocs. How do you envision their influence evolving in this election cycle, particularly in states like Virginia and Michigan?
So let me take a step back in Virginia in particular, and then we can talk about Michigan. A lot of people don't know this because, the last 4 or 5 general elections, you've seen that Virginia has voted Democrat, but a lot of people don't understand some of the data at the ground level. Of the last 3 governor elections, 2 out of the last 3 were determined by less than 50,000 votes. Those are on the wire, close election results. And so, to answer your question, when you look at the numbers of the South Asian and Muslim community here in Virginia, there's about 50,000-ish Pakistanis in Virginia. When you add the Indian community, now all of a sudden you have about an extra 100 to 125,000 Indians in Virginia. And so very quickly, the numbers start stacking up to the point where if the Indian and the Pakistani and in addition, the Muslim community show up and vote, you're looking at anywhere between 350 to 400,000 votes in one election cycle. And so the future of Virginia, where elections go in Virginia, can be very easily determined by where the South Asian community and also the Muslim community vote. And a lot of people haven't woken up to this reality. And for everything I've seen on the ground, the political allegiances, the alliances are all changing because of terrible education policy, because of the international dynamic as well. And so a lot of these populations are up for grabs, and people need to start emphasizing and focusing and empowering the South Asian and Muslim community to actually go vote because their vote matters in Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Segura, for your insightful answers. Now let's shift our focus to another question about unification for impact. Mr. Segura, with the significant population of South Asian and Muslim Americans in Northern Virginia and their active involvement in politics, I have noticed discussion in the media about their potential impact on the upcoming presidential election. So my question is, if communities like Pakistani Muslims and Indian would come together around shared issues, do you think they could truly influence the election outcomes? Are they genuinely a powerful force in 2024 election, or is this just a media speculation?
Well, I think a lot of the challenge that we have in the immigrant community, I'm Latino, is most people aren't very engaged in the electoral process typically. And what's interesting in Virginia is that there's an election every year. And so you typically have around 60% voter turnout in a presidential election. And then it goes all the way down to 35-40%. And whether it's the state and local elections, the state senate, the delegates, the supervisors. And so when you think of an environment where only 35% of people are voting, and these elections are the elections that directly determine who's on your school board, who is making who's getting on your board of supervisors that controls the road budget in your county, and who determines the car tax budget, which is something I absolutely hate in Virginia, is the car tax. But these elections are being determined by 35% of people. And so if you add the amount of South Asians and Muslims in the communities that can vote in Virginia, if you add their influence, and if they show up and vote in these off-year elections, they can 100% change the results and change where Virginia goes politically. And I think, if you look at the impact of Virginia when it comes to the Electoral College and electoral votes in the United States, when you look at the impact of Michigan, these are two states that in the last 3 or 4 election cycles have voted for Democrats. If they all of a sudden vote Republican, that 100% changes the map and changes the result of the national presidential election. So again, one of my passions in life is I want the Muslim community, the South Asian community, the minority and the immigrant communities to understand that if they vote, their voice will be heard in their localities, in the state, and federally as well.
Mr. Segura, after watching the debate, and I'm not looking to discuss who won or lost, but considering the pivotal role of Muslims and South Asian voters, how do you think Trump's performance will influence these communities and shape the Republican Party's approach toward them?
So Mansoor, that's a great question. And first of all, when you think about the stage, the debate stage that exists in the presidential cycles, in this first debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, I believe more than 60 million Americans tuned in to listen to the candidates. A lot of people know who Donald Trump is. A lot of people don't really know who Kamala Harris is or what she stands for. And so I think these debates are incredibly important in informing the voter, all these different voter groups as to who they might want to vote for in the coming months. And as it relates to the debate performance, I think most polls had both candidates losing because they didn't really focus on the issues. They were attacking each other. But I will say that I believe that the Republican machine, the Republican Party, missed out on an opportunity to really highlight the core failures of the Biden-Harris administration. I don't think President Trump really highlighted the impact that inflation has had on the hardworking, working class Americans. I don't think President Trump highlighted the extreme positions of the Democrats across the country and here in Virginia. For example, like we talked about, what's happening in our schools and the fact that these radical leftist school boards are refusing to share things with parents. And so, I hope, obviously I'm not a presidential candidate strategist. I do a lot of work in commerce and trade and making sure that small businesses are more successful. But I do hope that if there is another debate, that the candidates and especially the Republican Party can focus on the kitchen table issues, the issues that really make a difference in people's lives, because I think that's something that the Biden-Harris administration has ignored, and it's a huge opportunity for Republicans.
Mr. Segura, I'm sure people will appreciate your insights. So now let's discuss what's happening in the Muslim and Pakistani communities in America. You know that President Biden enjoyed strong support from South Asian and Muslim voters in the 2020 election. But it seems that dynamic is shifting, especially among Muslim Americans. While Democrats have often taken their support for granted, Republicans have not actively reached out to these communities. So what factors do you believe have contributed to this change, particularly in the light of ongoing conflict in Gaza and its impact on how Muslim voters view both political parties in the upcoming election?
Well, multiple issues have changed the political coalitions, and you're seeing it in real time. But the first, I would say, kind of local and very close to home issue that's changing how a lot of minority communities think of their allegiances and alliances politically is school safety. A lot of what's happened, for example, I've lived in Loudoun County, and we've seen that you have radical school boards, leftist school boards, that have, for example, decided to hide things, what's happening in the schools from parents, whether it's sexual assaults in bathrooms with very strange policies where boys, for example, can go into girls' bathrooms, to hiding fentanyl overdoses. There was a story a few months ago about how schools didn't share that there were multiple, I believe it was more than 5 fentanyl overdoses in a row that actually were not immediately shared with parents. It took more than 48 hours for the information to get back to the families. And so, these are just simple core parental rights issues. And so I think the fact that the schools aren't sharing this information is alarming a lot of these communities that are very common sense issues. And I would also say that the economy is really the number one issue that almost everyone is talking about here in Virginia. And people are tired of 7.5% interest rates when they're trying to buy a new home. They're tired of having to pay 100% more for eggs and bread than what they paid 2 or 3 years ago. And so, these issues are pushing the conversation and are changing how people are looking at who they want in office.
Mr. Segura, I'm truly impressed by your insight and knowledge about South Asian and Muslim issues and their political power. As we wrap up, what is your final message to our community regarding the upcoming elections?
My message to all the minority communities, all the immigrant communities, in particular the South Asian, the Pakistani, the Indian, and also the Muslim community in Virginia and in other places in Houston and in Michigan, is please get politically engaged and involved. These elections, whether it's your local supervisor, your local delegate race, your local state senate race, and even your governor's elections, they're not these. There's the saying "fait accompli," which is they're not already determined. The future is not determined. These elections come down to sometimes 2,000-3,000 votes, and even a governor election in Virginia there's about 8.7 million people in Virginia. It comes down to 40,000-50,000 votes. And so, I think we all have a responsibility to be civically engaged. We all have a responsibility to participate in the democratic process. That's why this country is so great. But I want folks to understand and to really accept the fact that if they vote, they can make a difference. Your vote is your voice in this country. And like I said, the numbers don't lie. All these elections are super tight. And so you can make a difference. And I hope that that's the message that people understand from this interview.
So, Mr. Segura, thank you for sharing your valuable insights on the critical role that South Asian, Pakistani, Indian, and Muslim American voters will play in this election. Friends, as we approach the 2024 US elections race, it's evident that the collective voices of these communities could significantly influence the outcome. It's essential for everyone to not only participate in the presidential election, but to engage in all elections, as every vote matters and shape our future. Thank you for tuning in the Capitol Corner from Washington. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless United States of America.